Hey, what's up, guys? It's me again, and we're back for another NFL Week 5 picks and predictions. Last week I went a horrible 6-10, bringing my overall record to a 34-30 record, barely above 500. This year has been very difficult to predict. My God. We got 4 teams on bye, so we've only got 14 games to predict this week, and so hopefully we can at least I'm shooting for 9-5 or better. With that being said, we're just going to go straight into this game. Thursday night football, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Atlanta Falcons. This is going to be a tough game, tough defensive game. Falcons won and they didn't even score a single offensive touchdown. Meanwhile, on the Bucs side, Baker has looked phenomenal, minus that game against the Broncos, but we're going to discredit that considering what we saw from the Jets and Broncos last week. I am going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here. I just think they got a lot more offensive showing going for them, while the Falcons haven't done too much unless they can get Younghoe Koo to kick 4 more 50-yard field goals again this week, which he's been a great kicker all year too. But I just think the Buccaneers are they're gonna start off hot and then they're gonna run out the clock. I think the Falcons are not great when it comes to playing from behind too much. Let too many games go by, but anything can happen. It is Thursday. It is at Atlanta. I do see the Falcons putting up a good fight. This is gonna be a close, tough game. Probably will come down to the last couple of plays, but I've just got the Bucs edging them out. Meanwhile, New York Jets at the Vikings. Jets, I don't know what the hell to talk about with you. I mean, -7 yards at half. At some point, Aaron Rodgers and Bo Nix both were 8 for 16, and Aaron Rodgers had quadruple the amount of yards that he had, and they still lost. They both missed kicks. Game-winning kick for the Jets, and you put up a measly 9 points. So I have no reason to pick you. The Vikings, I've been wrong on them. A lot of people, I think, have been wrong on them. It's time to get credit where credit is due. I'm giving the Vikings a smashing win this week. Aaron Rodgers is not going to beat the Vikings here. He hasn't been able to find Garrett Wilson. There's rumors that they could be trading for Devontae Adams, but what for? He can't even get Garrett Wilson involved. The offense hasn't looked that great. It's progressively gone worse, and now it's going to go to Minnesota, who's had a stellar defense. The only reason that defense let up so many points in the fourth quarter of the Packers is because the Packers had like 55 passing attempts and was slinging it to Dontavian Wicks and Jaden Reed all game long, I'm sure if it was a much closer game, the defense would have played a little better, but they still played good when it counted. They forced 4 turnovers. Rodgers is going to throw a pick 6 probably, and the Vikings are going to haul his ass. Panthers at the Bears. Caleb Williams finally looked decent this week. And the Panthers, they put up a decent fight through the Bengals game. They still lost, but hey, I mean, not a lot of people are expecting the Panthers to win more than probably 2 games this year anyway, and still that's why I'm going to go with the Bears over here, because I just think they just got a lot of momentum. They finally got DeAndre Swift going. He's been stellar. Caleb Williams was getting some rhythm going. Granted, the receivers didn't really show out, but you know what? The Bears still got a stout defense, so even if Caleb is struggling, which he has, last week was the only time he looked moderately decent, the defense should still do well enough against this Panthers offense. And then next game, Colts at the Jaguars. I mean, what do you say about the Colts? Anthony Richardson has struggled since week 1. Like week 1, he looks good, but didn't complete that many passes, but they were competing. Then the following few weeks, he doesn't really look that great. Then Joe Flacco comes in and beats the Steelers. He puts up 27 points on the Steelers. I don't even know if that's as many points as the Steelers has allowed all year, let alone that game. And they looked great. Meanwhile, the Steelers' defense looked at its worst, so that was a weird game too. But as for the Jags, I mean, they competed against the Texans, and they are due for a win. This is a trap game for the Colts. Colts have a long history of losing to the Jaguars for a good while now. It's insane how long that streak has been going. But I don't believe, I really can't choose trap games. I wouldn't be surprised if the Jags win here. They did look a lot better last week. CJ Stroud just came through last week, though, and put him out. But the Colts over here, I think, are going to barely take it. I think Trevor's going to have to sling the rock a lot this week for him to really get it going. Get ETN involved a little more. He's got a lot of good yards per carry, but when you only give him the ball 10 times a game, I mean, what can you really do? And the Colts might not be without Jonathan Taylor. If they're without Jonathan Taylor, I might pick the Jaguars. I might switch this pick to the Jaguars, but we'll see what happens. Meanwhile, the Miami Dolphins at the New England Patriots. I am never going to pick the Dolphins ever again until Tua comes back. There, said and done. I'm not picking the Dolphins, and I'm not picking one other team until I see something better from them. Dolphins made everything bad. Just everything is bad there. All their backups couldn't do anything against that Titans defense. And that Titans were down to their backup quarterback too, not even Will Levis. And the Patriots, I mean, I don't really have a lot to say about them. I just know they can't look worse than the Dolphins. Ravens at the Bengals. This is probably the toughest one. Ravens are heavily favored in this game for that smackdown they put against the Bills, which was very surprising. Only 10 points allowed to the Bills. Derrick Henry, practically 200 rushing yards almost. Lamar, he doesn't care how many passing yards he throws. He's running the ball. He's throwing very few times a game and letting Derrick Henry just carry it across the goal line. Meanwhile, the Bengals finally got their first win against the Panthers, and you hope to keep that winning streak going. Their offense has been fine. Their offense, since at least week 2, has looked fine. It's the defense that has been an issue. So this game is going to come down to like who's going to get the lead first. Because if the Ravens get a large lead, they're just going to pound the clock, pound the ball with Derrick Henry, and the Bengals are going to be able to keep up because their defense is going to be tired and just letting it go out of their way. But if the Bengals can consistently put up 30-plus points, I mean, it's going to be a long day for the Ravens too, because Joe Burrow has looked really good all year minus that week 1, but week 1 doesn't really count. So this is a toss-up game for me because this is also me being kind of biased based off what I've seen for the rest of their schedule coming up. You know, the Bengals got the Giants coming up, and that'll be a Sunday night game. While the Ravens, I believe, have the Commanders next. And if the Bengals lose here, they're just out. They're not making the playoffs. They need this winning streak to happen now. If they lose this game, they're done. Just throw it all away. You've got the offense. Just try to slow down Derrick Henry, you know. That's all the Bengals can really do. So I'm picking the Bengals out of a whim that they need this win more than the Ravens. Just like I picked the Ravens out of a whim that they needed the win more than the Cowboys is the exact same thing. Could I see the Ravens winning? Absolutely. I would not be shocked if the Ravens win by 10-plus points. But I'm just going because it's at Cincinnati, and I know that offense can score. I know the Bills could score a lot too, but this will be different. This will be a high scoring. I think both teams are going to put up at least 27 points. This is going to be crazy. Browns at the Washington. Fuck the Browns. I've been saying it all year, all 4 of my videos. Fuck Deshaun Watson. He sucks. Now, granted, last week wasn't entirely his fault. He did have a touchdown called back. But still, you struggled for a majority of the game. With the Raiders were without Max Crosby and without Devontae Adams. And, what do you want me to say about that? You still barely put up 9 points. Your defensive got a touchdown. Had the same amount of touchdowns that you did. And I'm supposed to believe that? Meanwhile, the Commanders, you know what? I picked against them last week, and that was a mistake. I just thought the Cardinals could bounce back because I thought both teams were kind of hot. I did say it could have been a competitive game and that Jaden Daniels could easily still look good. And he looked great. He's been killing it. You know what? I'm happy for the Commanders. You know, Jaden Daniels, keep it going because it's been fun watching him. It's not fun watching the Browns. I hope they lose every single game that they start Deshaun Watson. Cut him now. Bills at the Texans? Oh, God. I mean, what do I even say? Texans had a close win against the Jags. The closest win or closest to a win the Jags had when that didn't happen. Meanwhile, the Bills got spanked. You know, Keon Coleman had a bad drop. Josh turned it over. You know, you couldn't really get much going. You couldn't get James Cook going, and the Ravens were just laughing the whole game. And so it's hard for me to say the Bills are gonna lose 2 in a row. I want to pick the Texans really bad but I think they're gonna be without Joe Mixon. I think Joe Mixon is gonna be a critical part of that offense for them to win. I don't really believe in Cam Akers that much, Meanwhile, the Bills, they're gonna be vengeful. They're gonna be like, you know what? We're not freaking losing 10 to whatever again. No, they're gonna go to Houston and they're gonna show the NFL why the Bills are still a contender. Not to discredit the Texans, CJ Stroud has also looked great. Nico Collins, probably one of the best receivers in the NFL right now. He's looked phenomenal. Diggs is scoring touchdowns. It's not that I don't want the Texans to win or anything like that. I just think the Bills are going to be hungrier for a win right now. But I think this would be also a really good game. This could be a playoff matchup for all we know. I am very excited about this game. Raiders at Broncos. I am not very excited about this game. This game is also a toss-up for the wrong reasons. The last game could be a high-scoring affair with some exciting plays. This game could be the exact opposite. Maybe both teams will have negative yards heading into the fourth quarter. Who knows? Maybe each team has like 8 sacks and 2 picks. How should I know? The Raiders are having Devontae Adams issues. Who's he going to get traded to? I don't know. Anybody but the Chiefs for all I care. To me, he's most likely a Steel or a Cowboy. I really don't think he's going to go to the Jets, although a lot of people want to say that because of Rodgers and all that. But I already discussed that. I'll have to discuss that in another video. So we'll see about that. Well, the Broncos defense has been great. This Broncos defense has been carrying them all season. They got an impressive ass beating over the Buccaneers, and then they barely escaped the Jets because the Jets couldn't do shit. Bo Nix has not looked good at all for a single quarter. He has not looked good. And I don't think that's going to continue here. It is at Denver, and that's why I'm going to give the Broncos the edge over here because the Raiders just have so many issues. They've got injury issues. We don't know if Gardner Minshew is even going to start this week. And even if he does, I'm still going to pick the Broncos because they just have been more impressive defensively. Offensively, they still suck. But all you need to do is get it to Courtland Sutton, apparently, and that's all she wrote. Raiders, get a running game going for once, That's all you can do. That's the biggest part of the reason you've been losing because you have 0 run game. You are one of the worst rushing offenses in the league. Try to get something going this week. Cardinals at the Niners. Yeah, I'm going Niners. Cardinals disappointed me last week. I mean, it's one thing if they had lost to the Commanders, but they got smacked. Maybe it's one of those things where like the first couple weeks is a fluke. They looked really good last week 1 and week 2, and then nothing really happened. I mean, while the Niners, they bounced back. And I don't really know what to say about the Niners because Christian McCaffrey is probably going to miss the whole season at this rate. It's not confirmed that he's going to miss the entire season, but it might as well be that because that's how it's looking. But you still got Mason, who's a very good backup running back at this point. But you'd still love to get McCaffrey back, and they're going to have Deebo Samuel back. Kittle is making fantastic plays. The one thing about Kittle, he never does great 2 weeks in a row, knowing this as a fantasy person. So if he scored 20 points last week, he's probably going to score 3 points this week. But you know what? He's not going to have to do much because the Niners are going to win comfortably in this game. All you can really do as a Cardinals fan is see how Marvin Harrison Jr. progresses, get him involved a little more, and continue his astounding rookie season. The Niners, you got to keep it up. If you want to call yourselves a contender, you better not lose this game. You've got the Chiefs coming up in 2 weeks, and that's going to be crucial. Giants at the Seahawks. Yeah, my upset pick was very wrong. Matter of fact, I actually went over 3 in all 3 of the primetime games that week. That's insane. Freaking Seattle. You let Jared Goff complete every single pass. The first quarterback to throw 18 for 18 against you. And they still had a good run game. Offensively you did fine. You had some plays. Kenneth Walker, I think he's going to smash this game just like he did last game because the Giants are probably going to be without Malik Nabers. And even if they have Malik Nabers, they couldn't score a touchdown last week. They had plenty of opportunities to score against the Cowboys and they got held to field goals multiple times. Now I got to believe that they're going to go into Seattle and put up a better performance. Probably not. Meanwhile, Seattle defensively, I know you have a lot of people injured, but still, hope to get a couple of those guys back. Otherwise, I have no reason to pick the Giants. Especially if they're without Malik Nabers, then the Giants are going to get smacked. They're going to lose like 30-6. If they have Malik Nabers, 30-16. There you go. Packers at the Rams. Rams struggled against the Bears. The Bears punter actually punted within their 10-yard line multiple times, so the Rams couldn't really get moving down the field because they were so far back multiple times, but they still almost won. You know, Kyron has looked fantastic despite the injuries to the offensive line. Meanwhile, the Packers, you were down 28-0 and almost won. You made it a really close game, but still you were down 28-0. Sam Darnold didn't even have 200 passing yards, but he had multiple passing touchdowns, and Jordan Love threw multiple interceptions and a fumble. So he's not 100%. He's fighting Jaden Reed, and he got Wicks involved, but you're going to be without Christian Watson. But, you know, Jordan Love should not have to be able to throw the ball 60 times a game for you to win, because he's 0 for 2 right now when he does that. You got to get Josh Jacobs involved somehow this game. You can still get your playmakers involved. You can still find Reed deep if you want. You can still find Wicks and Dobbs and Tucker Kraft. That looked really good last week too. But if you want to win, just run the ball with Jacobs. You have a really good running back. He hasn't scored a touchdown all season so far. Get him to win this week. Rams, if you just need to wait it out, you know. Maybe you can upset the Packers this week. That'll be crazy. You upset the Niners 2 weeks ago. But I just don't think you're going to be able to do them. I think those injuries are coming back. You know, Kyron can only do so much. Stafford can only do so much. You know, he's a great quarterback, and he's throwing to all these backups and trying to get something going, but it's just not going to be enough. I think the Packers are going to come out slinging it, and then get Josh Jacobs some more touches. Sunday night football, Dallas Cowboys at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Tough and gritty game this will be. Well, then again, maybe it won't be, because the Colts beat the Steelers, which was very unexpected. You know, I thought the Steelers would be 4-0 at this point. They're 3-1, which is still a great record, all things considering. Dallas actually almost lost to the Giants. I mean, Brandon Aubrey missed a late game field goal to extend their lead to 8, but maybe that's just Vegas telling him to miss because of how much they were favored by. But who knows? But even then, you only scored a measly 20 points against the Giants, and all game it was just Dak to CD, and that's all the Cowboys offense really is. You know, Ezekiel Elliott is not really getting going. Tolbert isn't as effective as you'd want him to be, but you still want to get him the ball. And Ferguson is a solid tight end. But that's why I think the Cowboys need to go after Devontae Adams. Imagine if they had CeeDee Lamb and Devontae Adams. That would be a hell of a duo. Then they can lose in the divisional round this year. But anyways, as far as this game goes, I don't really know who to pick. Like, I'm kind of making it on the spot. This is like a dead even game. I really don't know. It's like with the Cowboys, you gotta do a lot better than you did against the Giants. You're not gonna win putting up 20 points by just feeding CeeDee Lamb, because the Steelers defense is gritty. I know they lost to the Colts, but they're way better than that. They're not gonna have that kind of performance 2 weeks in a row. And Justin Fields has gotten progressively better. Last week was his best game yet. 3 touchdowns, 2 on the ground. He's not turning the ball over too many times. He's very efficient. Jalen Warren's hurt, so you're only getting Najee Harris involved. And I think that's why I'm going to pick the Steelers. I think as far as efficiency goes, I think Justin Fields continues to prove people wrong. I think he's gotten much better. The Steelers playbook is clearly working for him. You know, he's not going to be perfect. Obviously, if he throws an interception or loses the ball, that's one thing. But it's like, compared to how he was on the Bears, this is like a whole new field, and you love to see it. Meanwhile, I just think the Cowboys are just going to fall to 2-3. Like, I think they're still going to make the playoffs. I think in the long run they'll be fine, but I just got to go with the Steelers. It's at Pittsburgh in primetime. This is Fields' moment to shine, and I'm going with it this week. And finally, the New Orleans Saints at the Kansas City Chiefs. The Saints didn't let up a single offensive touchdown to the Falcons and still lost because Younghoe Koo is one of the greatest kickers ever. And the Chiefs barely beat the Chargers. Chargers were up 10-0. And then Mahomes decided, I don't really like Rashee Rice anymore. I'm just going to take out his knees. God forbid one of my other teammates, tackles the guy who got the interception. I'm just going to dive without looking at my teammate's knees. And now my best player, and yes, Rashee Rice was the best player at this point, or best receiver, I should say, because the Chief offense has looked worse each week. each week the Chiefs offense has looked worse. I think they've scored less and less points from weeks 1 through 4. Like they barely beat the Chargers. Like the Chargers, who couldn't get anything going, they were shut out for 3 quarters and they barely beat them late in the fourth with an Xavier Worthy long touchdown. And I think that's going to be the Saints' game plan. It's like all you've got is Kelsey and Xavier Worthy, a rookie, and they're going to have to get Juju involved a little more. I'm not sure if they're going to start Kareem Hunt just yet. He's definitely going to get on the field, but I'm not sure if he's going to be the running back 1 yet. If he does, good for him, but I don't think it's going to be as effective as you would if you had Pacheco. Meanwhile, the Saints' defense has always looked great. Their defense has looked fine. It's the offense that needs to get it going. You got to get Kamara involved. You got to get Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed involved a little more. You got to play better. You should have won that Falcons game. You should not have lost to the Falcons. They didn't score a single goddamn touchdown, and you let them drive multiple times down 50-yard field goal, 58-yard field goal, 48-yard field goal. Like, no. So this is going to be I think this is going to be a low scoring game. I barely have, this is my upset of the week. I've got the Saints winning because the Chiefs need to lose at some point. They're not going to go 17-0. When is their fall off? I think it is this week. But then they got a bye week coming up, which is going to be very beneficial to them because they got a Niners game after that, and that's going to be important. So not to say that I think the Chiefs are going to get destroyed in this game. No, I've got them losing 20-17. So I don't got the Saints putting that much of an outing either, but the Saints defense is really good. The Saints defense holds really strong, and all you got to do is you got to double Kelsey and just don't get cooked by Xavier Worthy because he's just a boomer bust guy. He's either a 0-yard guy or, hey, he just scored on a 50-yard play guy. And we're going to see how the Chiefs look with Kareem and Juju. But the Chiefs, like I said, have regressed over the weeks. The defense has stepped up a bit, but offense has just been very poor. You barely beat the Bengals off a call. You barely beat the Ravens off a toe. You barely escaped Atlanta with a no flag and then them not able to scoring in the end zone. And you barely beat the Chargers, who couldn't run and could barely throw at all. So how am I supposed to believe the Chiefs will keep winning? Maybe they'll lose this game and the Niners game and then go on a huge win streak. I don't know. But, it's got to happen at some point. I think this is the week. So those are my picks. If you want a quick recap, I've got Bucks, Vikings, Bears, Bengals, Patriots, Commanders, Colts, Bills, Broncos, Niners, Packers, Seahawks, Steelers, Saints. Those have been my picks and predictions. Hope to see y'all next week, and I'll catch y'all later. Peace.